Ready? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2025 SAU, this is going to keep happening, SAU 74 deliberative session. I'd like to remind you, if you haven't signed in, go up and see the supervisors up there. You need a little yellow card in order to vote on anything. I'd like to introduce the people up front here. The school board, we have Chairperson Moira Taylor, Vice Chair Carrie Neal, and Garth Svensson, Jason Baker, and Rick Walker. We have Cindy Taylor, the treasurer. She's not up here, but she's around somewhere. Anne Marie Cummings, the district secretary. Deanna Ray, superintendent. Vicki Druin, financial manager. Katie Kukesh, director of student services. Peter Phillips, the school district attorney. And making all the sound and visuals possible, Mike Geyer and Jeff Delange hiding back here. I'm Ron St. Jean, school district moderator. We're good. All right, with opening statements, Moira Taylor.
They're all laughing at me because they know how much I don't enjoy this. But I did want to take a moment to thank you all for coming out. I know it's tough to come out on a Saturday morning, especially the day before a storm. So thank you. We are proud to present this budget to you for you to review. We've worked hard to deliver a budget that is fiscally responsible while continuing to move our district forward. I want to thank the leadership team, the teachers, and the staff for all they do for our students in Barrington. We're fortunate to have such dedicated people in our district. And if anyone watched Tuesday night's board meeting, it's riveting, you would have heard Superintendent Ray talk about the interview she did. And what came through for a lot of staff was the climate and culture of both our schools and our Barrington community. So thank you for making Barrington a place where educators want to come and being so supportive of the district. I also wanted to take a moment to thank my fellow board members and the members of the ABC for their hard work. We started the process a little bit earlier and they attended a lot and they gave a lot of time to review the budget and give input. And so, you know, for those who don't know, it can be a challenge to start budgeting in October to go through June of 2026. So like a year and a half ahead to predict what you're going to need. So we appreciate their input and support and we thank you all again for coming out.
The tech people don't usually get that much camera time, but they've had a little opportunity today that is a little more fun. Let me see. I will go over my procedures for an orderly school district deliberative session, also known as the rules of order. Number one, the moderator follows no set rules of order. Voters have the right to challenge the moderator's rules and rulings. Well, echoey here. Can you turn that down a little? Mike, can you turn it down a little? Okay.
We lost all those feedback settings, so.
Okay. Number two, only registered voters, school district employees, and the school district's attorney will be allowed to speak. Number three, after an article is introduced, the school board, superintendent, and ABC will be recognized first before any comments from the floor. Number four, the moderator may limit debate. Number five, comments should be concise and relevant to the article under discussion. Personal attacks are not allowed. All debate and questions will be through the moderator. Number seven, speakers must be recognized by the moderator and identify themselves before speaking. And you'll need to come up to the microphone in the front to speak. Complicated motions should be submitted in writing. Only one amendment will be considered at a time. To request a secret ballot, this is the complicated part. 5 or more voters in attendance must make the request in writing before a hand vote is called for. Immediately following a hand vote, 7 voters may request a vote by secret ballot. And number 11, voters may move to restrict reconsideration of an article after discussion of that article is complete. If the motion passes, there could be no further discussion of that article. And please silence your electronic devices unless you're a emergency person. Okay, we also mentioned where the exit is, the same place the entrance was, over there at the door. All right, now we will have the proposed budget overview by Superintendent Deanna Ray.
I would actually like to begin by doing the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, and good morning, everyone. I think this may be the largest crowd I have spoken to thus far, although last year was close, so I appreciate it because most of the people in the room have heard this about 500 times. So as Ms. Taylor mentioned, we do start our budgeting a good year and a half in advance. The administrative team actually starts in the summertime, trying to do our best at predicting what we are going to need for that almost 2 full years for students. So this morning we will review the budget process, look at our mission and vision, our 5-year goals, the proposed versus the default budgets. We've got a problem with the presentation. It's stuck on the opening slide.
Clicker's not working. There we go.
Okay. Oh, now we're way ahead. One more. There we go. Now we're on track. Apologies for that. Proposed versus default budgets, budget impacts that are out of our control. Of course, our enrollment overview, given that our number of students directly impacts what we are asking for our bottom line budget. High school costs, keeping tabs on a potential elementary school expansion, our per pupil cost as they compare to the state averages. Some substantial facility needs that we have coming up, not unexpected ones, just to keep our buildings in good order, and a long-term plan to address those costs, as well as some grant funding trends and a little wrap-up, and then we'll review our 8 warrant articles for consideration. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide. This just outlines our process. Again, we do start quite early. The School Board Advisory Budget Committee joined us right from the initial presentation in October through the December timeline. So they did certainly dedicate a lot of time and energy to this process, as did the school board and the administrative team. So that brings us to the January 7th hearing, and then this morning, the 8th, for our deliberative session, and then ultimately our vote on March 11th. So a couple years ago, we took on the looking at our mission and vision. It hadn't been looked at for quite some time in the district, and given that we had some turnover and some new leadership and school board participation, we thought that was a good thing to do. So our mission, the Barrington School District, strives to be a community learning and growing together, giving students roots and wings. And our vision, we empower our community of learners in a safe and supportive environment to nurture compassion, cultivate curiosity, and inspire innovation. In addition to the mission and vision work, as a result of not only our NEASC accreditation process at the middle school, but just something that we chose to take on as a district, is our Portrait of a Learner work. So get ready to find a nice video representing our characteristics that we defined for Portrait of a Learner on our in-process but looking nice and fresh website. We have 4 focus areas in our 5-year goals. These are in no particular order of importance. They are all important, but I'll just go through the overarching sentiment for each one. First, we have operations. We want to make sure we continue to be fiscally responsible, make sure we have safe and secure procedures and buildings, And of course, we want to protect the investment in our facilities. We certainly have 4 buildings in district that are cared for very well as a result of our great facilities and custodial crew, in addition to our taxpayers supporting that investment and keeping our buildings safe and clean and looking great. Another goal area is multi-tiered systems of support for academics. In this area, we want to continue to strengthen teaching processes and research-based practices to move toward inclusive, rigorous instruction for all. Some of the work that we are doing right now includes really diving into the science of reading work, making sure we're in compliance with dyslexia law. And yeah, that's all I'll say about the science of reading for right now. Multi-tiered systems of support for behavior. We strive to directly teach skills to promote the awareness and management of mental health and behavioral well-being for not only students, but also staff. And of course, our other area of focus is on our community. We want to build and maintain relationships through clear and regular communications while providing support and increasing involvement from all of our townsfolks and taxpayers. All right, so let's look at, right up front, our proposed budget versus our default budget. Typically, we look at our proposed and our current year's budget and compare the two of those. However, this year, given that the default budget was significantly higher than in past years, we thought it made more sense to compare those two numbers instead. So this is really kind of the meat of the overall presentation. So the proposed fiscal year 26 budget is a 7.7% increase over this year, or just under $32 million for a total. That is a 1.1% increase, and it includes the following costs. So as we always would, we would anticipate our transportation costs are going to increase. We have a request for proposals out right now as that contract is due. We anticipate about a $36,000 increase in food service. We have added some additional funds for website upgrades in order to make sure that we are ADA compliant, both website and for cellular use. Some additional curriculum increases. We had a few items still remaining in ESSER grants that we had to put into the regular budget. Very few, thankfully, because we've been mindful of that over the last couple of years, making sure we don't leave those items sitting in grants that we knew were going to go away. And some facility increases as well, given the increase in outdoor learning, which is amazing. We have found that we certainly have some mature trees that we don't want our facilities and custodial staff tackling from a safety perspective. So some tree service amounts in there, as well as increases in repairs and maintenance and utilities, in addition to cleaning service. We have continued over the last 3 to 5 years to struggle to maintain and secure custodial staff of our own, so we've had to more and more look to outside services to take care of those cleaning needs. So many of you might be wondering, why is the default budget so high this year? These are the following items that have to be added to a default. So you look at your current operating budget, and there are certain things that you must include in the next year. Some of those are the 12.4% increase to health insurance, mandated collective bargaining agreement adjustments. We've also had a 6-student increase in our high school numbers, and when we get to the high school slides, you'll see that that equates to about $100,000, with each high schooler ranging around the $21,000 mark. In addition, those tuition agreements themselves have gone up a considerable amount, close to 8% in one case. And like I already mentioned, transportation and food service costs are not part of your default budget, so you have to anticipate adding those in. All right, so here are some of the budget impacts that are beyond our control. We are anticipating some decreases to federal grant funding. I'm sure if you all are watching the news, you're hearing the potential dismantling of the Federal Department of Education. I will say that initially we all got very nervous and we thought that our grant funds were going to go away. That is not the case. The department is being dismantled, but the funds will follow those positions into other departments. But we do anticipate that there will be some decreases in those overall funds, just not down to zero, thank goodness. There are federal and state curriculum mandates that take place that don't have any funding behind them. The science of reading and the dyslexia law is a great current example of that, and the fact that we need to have a researched, scientifically based language arts curriculum in place for July 1 of 27. So we decided this year, given all the other expenses, to put that curriculum adoption to the side and take it up next year. So if you know anything about curriculum cycles, when you're looking at math and language arts, those are your two not only most important, but most costly adoptions. So we will most likely be looking at right around $500,000 to $700,000 for that adoption. So we will certainly keep everybody apprised regarding that and do our best at implementing in the most fiscally responsible way that we can, while also giving our students what they need in the area of reading and writing. I mentioned the increases to high school tuition costs already, as well as the number of high schoolers that we have. And then another area where we already know that we are having a fairly large reduction in state aid is the special education students that are out of district. The formula has been changed yet again for the money that we get back when we send kiddos out. The other thing that has happened in the last 2 to 3 years is any service that we don't have the employee for, that we contract out. Physical therapy is a great example. English as a second language. The costs of those services have increased dramatically. Another area of concern is transportation for special education students, and then also our students that are experiencing homelessness. If they move to another community and their family and our team decide it's in their best interest to remain in the Barrington school system, then we have to transport them from the community in which they are temporarily residing back to Barrington. The community that receives them does cost share that expense with us, but we are seeing an increase in situations such as that, and just the cost of getting a bus has increased quite as much as well. So next, let's look at our historical enrollment statistics. That's a 10-year range there. We actually have remained fairly stable, which is shocking when you drive around town and see all the ground breaking and new houses going up. If you look at the range there, we've gone anywhere from 1,365 to 1,450 students, so a fluctuation of about 85 students, which interestingly, the year after COVID was one of our largest years. So for next year, here's our current enrollment on the middle column there at 1,376 students, and then our projection for next year is up 20 students, with middle and high school being where we're finding slight increases. We are well, not just guessing, we know that at the elementary school, the enrollment is down a little bit there due to an additional charter school opening in the area that is drivable because we don't transport to those. So there are now 2 that are somewhat local that families have chosen to take advantage of, and then our homeschool population also kind of contributes to that number. So jumping into high school enrollment. Important to remember that high school tuition costs make up about 1/3 of the overall budget. So when you're looking at that, about $32 million, over 10 million of it goes off to support our high schoolers. So it is really critical that we keep as close tabs on this number as possible. This is probably the only chart that we adjust every minute we can throughout the budget process. The elementary numbers, we just rely on our October 1st count that we submit to the state. So that's a common question that I will get is, hey, Deanna, why is the number that the state has for your high schoolers differ than what you're showing me, today? Well, that's because these are kiddos that we know are actually in our schools right now. So again, given that it's about $21,000 to educate a high schooler each year, we want to make sure that we're budgeting as closely as we can. We had a situation a couple years ago where we had an influx of high school age students, and we were 18 students in the hole. So if you do that math real quick, that's a little unnerving when your budget is less than 3% by the end of the year is what we end up turning back to taxpayers. So we try to be very closely on top of that number as we can. Here are our tuition rates. The only number that is not definitive for next year is the Dover High School number, and that is just purely a result of their city tax structure. We don't know the actual number that we're paying for Dover High School students until their financials are reported to the state in the fall. So we do our best at budgeting that. We did increase that by $500 a student right towards the very end of the budgeting process, because when we got this year's number, we realized we had not gone up enough for comfort's sake. So I suspect it will be slightly higher than that, but that was a pretty reasonable number to project there. So getting down a little more to the nitty-gritty of our students that we educate here in town, this is the preschool through 8th grade enrollment history, and you can see that that number has remained pretty consistent. Although that number has remained consistent, like I mentioned, we are, as closely as we track high schoolers right now, it is extremely important that we track the number of students that are moving into town, particularly on the new roads and houses that have been built, to make sure that the elementary school can continue to absorb these numbers. So we did a demographic study. It's a couple of years old now, but it is still trending positively, right on target from what they had predicted. There were some interesting findings there. Despite what other communities in the state are doing, our numbers are steadily increasing as a town. I'm sure you've heard on the news, most other communities, their numbers are decreasing, especially in their student age population. Part of the reason for that is the average age of people who are moving into Barrington is lower than the average age in other communities across the state. So we have younger families moving in, which again isn't a surprise because most of the homes being built are 3-bedroom plus homes. So at the time of the study, there were some of the larger projects. They won't crystal ball that, so if the ground has not been broken and concrete hasn't been poured, they don't take those numbers into account. Some of those projects have now broken ground, and so we are seeing a bit of an increase. To date, we have 60 students district-wide, but at the elementary school itself, 29 additional students from those from new homes that have been built. And what I did is I took the roads from when the condos went in across the street from here forward. So if you can think back, that's quite a few new developments. We tend to, in the past, have sort of relied on being able to absorb those numbers, but they are going up simultaneously now in pretty rapid fashion. So your streets that, in the past would have, 14, 17 houses on them where we thought, we're okay, we can absorb that, are now becoming more and more critical for us to pay attention to. So not only was our elementary school built in a time where we didn't have the programs and the type of instruction that we deliver today with missing small group instructional spaces, we're also a little concerned about population. So we are ensuring that we, in real time, is as close tabs on that number as we can. All right, at the hearing, we did not yet have the cost comparisons per pupil at the state level. We have those now. The elementary school is about $17,600 per pupil that we spend here in Barrington. The state average is $23,700. So a little greater of a difference there than has been in years past. So we are certainly doing more with the money that we budget for our kiddos here. Same thing at the middle school. Middle school has been pretty much arm in arm with the state average. This year, there's a little bit of a slight difference there. We are just over $20,000 per pupil, and the state average is $22,500. All right, so I mentioned our facilities and the great shape that our facilities are in. So let's look a little more deeply at the facilities capital reserve account and some long-range planning needs there. As you would expect, when buildings age, just like our homes, we need to make sure that we are keeping tabs on the larger things that we need, like a roof, to make sure that we keep things sound. And then also there are items that come up that are unanticipated at times, like these big banks of windows in this building that structurally need a little bit of repair. It's not that they're unsafe, just we're all good here. Just that I'd mention that because they are large banks of windows, but they are now starting to, moisture is getting on the inside, and so clearly you don't want moisture on the inside of your building. Then we would see disrepair to our floors and other internal structures. So that repair is right now cost projected at a little over $150,000, and then we have some regular routine items that can add up quickly that we want to make sure we are planning for. Things such as seal coating and lining the parking lots at our buildings, protecting the investment in our vehicles, some roof silicone to give us more years out of the roof on this building. Hopefully, the ECLC is the one building who has not had a generator, and that seems to, with our interesting weather patterns, seems to be becoming more and more of a concern there. So we're hoping to get a generator at the ECLC, and then also start to look at some climate control so that we're not sitting in 95-degree classrooms, because we now have a heat RSA out of when we would not be able to be in school if we were to exceed temperatures in classrooms. So this is a long-range, near 10-year plan to ensure that we can not only take care of our facilities and do these larger projects. Important to note, as we know, you cost something out today, it's going to cost more when we actually get to it. We try to do as much as we can with our current operating budgets. So if some of these can get done within a current budget, if we've had change and have some money, we will certainly do that. But we also want to make sure we don't leave this facility capital reserve at zero. So my estimation is at the end of 9 years, if we continue to commit to putting $250,000 aside, we will not only be able to maintain our buildings and deal with these repairs or maintenance costs that we know are coming up, but we also will not be at a zero in our capital reserve when the time comes. Looking at the rest of our capital reserve accounts, so facilities currently has just over $1.2 million. High school tuition has $478,700. Again, one student moving in is about $21,000, so you can see how quickly that could be absorbed. Special education, just over $504,000. Another thing to note there is when you're looking at an out-of-district placement for a student, you know, we used to think that $50,000, $60,000 was a lot of money for an out-of-district placement. You can double that in 2025. So most out-of-district placements are costing us anywhere from $110,000 to $160,000. So you can see if you get a move-in who already has a placement from their past team, that number could go down very quickly. Technology, we have just over $82,000, and civics experience, $9,140. So our capital reserve accounts are in great shape. So some federal grant funding trends. This is Title I and II. The dip that you see there was during the COVID year. What a lot of people aren't aware of is part of the formula there takes into account free and reduced numbers. And if you recall, during COVID and the year after, all children ate all meals for free. So there was really no reason, right, to fill out a free and reduced lunch application, and that was the downside of that. The good news is the state and the federal government realized that that was an impact. We did get offset grant funds to make up the difference for that, so thank goodness that happened. And then we had to put forth some pretty good efforts in the upcoming year or two after that to not only explain to people why that number is so important. We certainly want children who have food insecurities to be filling out that form anyway, but it also feeds directly into the formula for our grant funding. And let's see, Title IV and the IDEA grants. Title IV is one that fluctuates quite a bit. It is technology-driven. It is evened out a little bit for us. It's one of those that some districts get it and some districts don't. So whenever we get it, we're excited and we put it to good use. And the IDEA grant is your special education student services grant. The reason for the increase there is the state and federal governments realized a few years ago that their formula for New Hampshire was faulty. So basically what happened was, even though we have tuition agreements with our high schools and we are paying for the special ed costs at our high schools, our special ed grant funds were also following our students in the high schools, and those towns were receiving those funds instead of those funds staying in Barrington so that we could use them to support our students. So that changed, and now we have an increase there that we've had for the last several years that benefits us greatly. And that brings us right back to where I started. So circling back, again, our default budget is a 6.59% increase over the current year's budget. What we are asking for is 1.1% greater than that to be able to fund basically the list of things that are on the screen there, transportation and food service increases, which we must do regardless, and then also website upgrades, non-union increases, some curriculum needs, and some facility maintenance and repairs. And also, just like at your homes, our utility costs are going up quite rapidly. So basically, a nice thank you to the crowd, to the school board, the advisory budget committee, the district leaders for all their dedication during this process. It's always a daunting, unnerving process because you are doing it so far in advance. I believe we put together a budget that is sensitive to the financial impact to our community while still maintaining our investment in our facilities, along with a high-quality education for our students. We've been as conservative as possible this year. One example was waiting on our ELA adoption curriculum because we anticipate we may have some more challenging times ahead with reduction in federal and state revenue sources. And that is all I have.
Okay, are there any questions on that presentation before we get into individual articles? Roger.
The next slide should say questions.
Try talking a little, Roger. Say something.
Say something. Okay. Thank you for that trip through the numbers.
Roger, please introduce yourself.
Sorry, I'm Roger Gingrich at 32 Peabody Way, grandpa in the community. I'm wondering about one detail, and it has to do with the homeless issue that you raised. My wife and I have been involved in packing food for 68 hours for about the last 8 years. It used to be we had 30 or so kids in that. The past 3 years, it's been stable at about 20, plus or minus one. My question is, you said that, I think I heard you say that the number of out-of-town homeless kids have gone up. That's something I didn't realize happened in this community, and thank you for that. But I'm just wondering if you could give us a numerical kind of sense for what you're dealing with there in terms of homeless.
You got this off the top of your head?
So, is my mic on? I think Jeff's fixing it. So we have had an increase in high school homelessness. Part of that is attributed to the definition of an unaccompanied youth. We're seeing that some of our high schoolers are not living under the same roof as their guardians or their parents. They might be living with another family member or a friend out of town for a variety of reasons. I obviously can't disclose those for confidentiality reasons. So we've seen an increase there. We currently have under 10. Again, for confidentiality, I don't want to give a solid number, but under 10 high schoolers. And then in our K-8 population, we have about 15 to 20 students that are identified as McKinney-Vento.
Okay, any other questions? Yep. All right.
Hi, good morning. Dave Toddy, Shady Lane. You talked about under budget impacts beyond our control. You talk about drastic reduction in state aid. And I'm assuming you're talking about adequacy dollars in that statement. So of the roughly, say, 32 million in a proposed budget, how much of that is adequacy dollars from the state?
About 7 to 8 million.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Tracy?
Of this, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to. Tracy Hardikoff, 48 Stone Farm. How many students do we actually have going out of district right now?
That are
That
placed.
number's less than 10, so we don't disclose when we're under 10.
Less than 10. And how many high school students are we anticipating in this budget? How many have we budgeted for?
We have budgeted for 430.
430. And do we have an additional buffer at all above that 430?
We
Okay.
don't do that anymore.
So
We
just
used to.
6 additional? Just
We used
6
to
above
carry-
and beyond what we currently see?
Right now, the number is 6, overall,
6,
that's
okay.
more.
But that's just taking our current 8th through 11th graders and just moving them. There's
Okay.
not buffer kids.
I had some confusion because it looks like our numbers have dropped by about 65 students. Do we know why?
So we're actually projected up 20 for next year.
I know what we're projecting, but the actual from 2023 to 2024 that we saw dropped 65 students. Do we know why?
Some of them are homeschooled, some of them went to charter schools, some are doing VLAX. There's a variety of reasons.
Okay. But we're still projecting an increase from over 24 months. Okay. And then I had one other question, and this is a detailed question in reference to payroll. When we are using paraprofessionals as substitute teachers, are we compensating them with some type of stipend included in this budget?
They are compensated on an hourly rate differential, and it's part of their collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, may I ask how much that is? Is it 10%, 20%, 50%?
It's a dollar amount. It's an additional $5 per hour.
$5 per hour. Thank you, that's helpful to know. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions on the overall presentation? Seeing none, we'll get into the articles. Article 1 is to elect one clerk for 1 year, one moderator for 1 year, one treasurer for 1 year, and 2 school board members for 3 years. And for all these positions, the incumbents are running and there are no challengers. Move along to Article 2. This is the operating budget. Shall the school district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $31,799,238. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $31,470,470, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numerals 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This is recommended by the school board 5-0 and the advisory budget committee 4-1. Any comments by the school board or superintendent or the ABC? Any comments from the floor? Hey, Dave?
Hi, Dave Toddy, Shady Lane. I just wanted to speak really in support of this budget for a second. I asked earlier about adequacy dollars versus what we're spending in the district. And essentially what the state is telling us is that for $7 million, you can give every kid in this town an adequate education. We spend $32 million. So $7 million is not going to get you an adequate education. And the state is cutting that money further. Monday at 1:30, the House of Representatives is going to take up HB 232. Let me just give you a little bit of the language from that. What they want to cut from the adequacy of an education is social studies. We're taking out civics, government, economics, geography, history, Holocaust and genocide education. We're going to do away with arts education, including music and visual arts. We're getting rid of world language. It goes on. So when I think about how much the state is talking about possibly cutting from an education, and I wonder how we can hedge, how we can try to protect our community. And I think the smallest thing we can do is throw the extra 1.1% at the proposed budget. Because if we take another 1.1% away now, and the state goes ahead and takes away a whole bunch more, we're going to be left with a train wreck. So I just really wanted to throw that out there. If anybody wants to comment to the House of Representatives on HB 283, there's a way you can do it online really easily, and I'd be happy to share that information with you. And your online comments are actually very effective in New Hampshire because that information has to be introduced on the floor when this is going up for a vote. So at the end of the meeting, I'll stand in the back of the room and share as much information as I can on that. And yeah, so just wanted to speak in support of the proposed budget. Thank you.
Tracy?
Thank you.
I think it would be helpful for me to understand better why we are budgeting $120,000 more for high school when we have a fund worth $460,000 in case we have an increase in high school students. I spent a lot of time going over the 50 pages of the budget and could really understand the hard work that went into creating that budget and reviewing it from an advisory budget perspective. The one question I had was, why do we have a fund sitting out there for it, and we're still budgeting for an increase we don't know about?
So the numbers we budgeted for, we do know about. So we are obligated when we know something in order to put it in the budget.
So we already know there's 6 more high school
Correct.
students?
Yep.
Okay, understood. That's helpful for me to understand. I would just give thought to this. Over on the right-hand column where you do a really good job of detailing the information, I think instead of projected, it should say known, just so that when people are looking at it, it reduces their thought that, well, there's this fund, but why this? Just
Thank
some
you.
thought there.
Yeah.
Any other questions on Article 2? Okay, seeing none. Article 2 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 3. Are you in favor of changing the terms of the school district
Mr.
clerk?
Moderator?
Oh, I'm sorry, yep.
I make a motion to restrict Article 2 from further consideration.
I'll second that.
Okay, they've moved to restrict reconsideration of Article 2. That means if we approve that, we cannot discuss this again later. All those in favor, raise your cards. All those opposed? Okay, Article 2 is restricted. Okay, back to Article 3. Are you in favor of changing the terms of the school district clerk, moderator, and treasurer from 1 year to 2 years, beginning with the terms of the school district clerk, moderator, and treasurer to be elected at next year's regular school district meeting? Recommended by the school board, 5-0, and the ABC, 5-0. Any comments from the school board, or superintendent, or the ABC, or comments from the floor? Seeing none, Article 3 will appear on the ballot as written. You going to do that again?
I make a motion to restrict further consideration on warrant 3 from further consideration.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Earth seconds. All those in favor of restricting, raise your cards. All those opposed? Okay, Article 3 is restricted. Article 4, shall the Barrington School District vote to approve a tuition agreement between the Barrington School District and the Oyster River Cooperative School District as negotiated by the school board for the Barrington students in grades 9 through 12, which provides for an initial term of 8 years commencing on July 1, 2025 and running through June 30, 2033, and contains a limit of 260 students. And further, authorize the school board to take such other further actions necessary to give effect to this vote, including the adoption of minor amendments to the agreement during its term, without further action at a school district meeting. Any discussion by the school board? Yep.
I just would like to take a moment to clarify for folks. I've had a few questions over the last couple of weeks. So by voting for each of these high school tuition contracts, you're not eliminating the other one. We had a forum last spring where the community overwhelmingly supported high school choice. And furthermore, I hope that they both pass, given that if they don't, we won't be able to continue our choice. So we are, by RSA, obligated to educate all of our students, ages 6 through 22 in some cases. So we certainly would love to continue having the option of 3 high schools for our students to attend and choose from. In addition to that, some folks have asked me, why is Co-Brown not up for a tuition contract? And that is simply because we do a memorandum of understanding with Co-Brown, which actually at the last board meeting, the board just signed a 2-year agreement. So just wanted to take an opportunity to clarify that point this morning.
Thank you. I don't think I mentioned the school board and the ABC both approved this 5-0. Any comments from the ABC? Yep.
thank you for being here. Can you explain how?
Excuse me, please state your name.
Brian Grieve, 1611 Franklin Pierce Highway. Can you tell me how students apply to Oyster River, or what the process is for that? I'm just unfamiliar.
There's actually a full lottery process in our policy section on the website, but I am happy to send it to you separately. It's just a proof of residency and an application that puts you on a list. If we were to need a lottery, the last meeting is when we would have done that. Oyster River has worked with us to increase our number, so we have not had to have a lottery in quite some time.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments?
Can I just add a comment? And just to be clear, it's not an application that can, like, they don't deny any of our students. Any of them are welcome. It's not really applying.
Yep. Enrollment, I should have said enrollment process.
Diane St. Jean, Small Road. Could you please just tell us in these contracts that are proposed in the memorandum with Co-Brown, how many students do each of these high schools accept? Like, what would be the maximum?
Dover's tuition contract is written so that they have the ability to accept up to 100% of our students. Oyster River, we had a gradual increase. This year is the first year we've added 5 additional slots, so the freshman year for next year would be 55. Because they, like many communities in the area, are looking at a decrease in enrollment, they have then allowed more Barrington students to be able to attend. So over the course of that contract, we will then be able to have 260 students enrolled total. Co-Brown does not have a limit, nor does it specify necessarily that they would take all of them. I think they'd probably be hard-pressed to have our 400-plus students in their facility. But we tend to trend pretty consistently with 40% of our 8th graders going to Dover, 40% going to Oyster River, and then the remaining 20 going to Co-Brown.
Okay, any other questions on Article 4? Seeing none, Article 4 will appear on the ballot as written.
I make a motion to restrict Article 4 from further consideration.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion to restrict Article 4 from reconsideration. All those in favor, raise your cards. Any opposed? Okay, Article 4 is restricted. Article 5. Shall the Barrington School District vote to approve a tuition agreement between the Barrington School District and the Dover School District as negotiated by the School Board for Barrington students in grades 9 through 12, which provides for an initial term of 9 years, commencing on July 1, 2025, and running through June 30, 2034, and contains a limit of up to 100% of Barrington students, and further authorize the school board to take such other and further actions necessary to give effect to this vote, including the adoption of minor amendments to the agreement during its term without further action at a school district meeting. Recommended by the school board 5-0 and the ABC 5-0. Any comments from the school board? Any comments from the ABC? Any comments from the floor? All right, seeing none, Article 5 will appear on the ballot as written. Go ahead, Terry.
Hello again. I make a motion to restrict Article 5 from further consideration.
Second.
Okay, all of those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 5, raise your cards. Any opposed? Okay, Article 5 is restricted. Article 6. Shall the Barrington School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Barrington School Board and the Barrington Education Association, Inc., that calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over those paid in the prior fiscal year. For year 25-26, the estimated increase, $568,056. And for the year 26-27, estimated increase, $379,466. And for the year 27-28, estimated increase, $371,352. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $568,056 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional cost attributable to the increase and salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels. Recommended by the school board 4-1 and the ABC 5-0. Any comments from the school board? Mary?
I would just like to encourage the community to continue. Actually, first I should say thank you for in the past always supporting, especially our teachers. And I truly encourage our community to continue to support the fantastic educators that we have, many who are in this room, but I know they're here in spirit for their entire staff. We truly cannot do the work of providing excellent care and education for our students without the commitment of the educators that we have. So I truly encourage the community to come back out and please support our educators. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the ABC? Any comments from the floor? Tracy?
I'm learning, which is why I have questions. Tracy Hardikoff, 48 Stone Farm. How often are we evaluating the teachers' salaries? Like on the town side, we do it every 5 years. Are we doing salary comparisons to other Seacoast communities to be sure we're remaining competitive?
We, it's tough when you say other Seacoast communities because we have some very wealthy communities neighboring us, right?
Yes, yes.
So we do look at those for content and language, but we also, when we first sit down to negotiate, we ensure that we're pulling collective bargaining agreements from other communities that have similar size as ours as well.
And does the collective bargaining agreement allow you to potentially like go back in year 3 if we see a large increase in area salaries? Can you go back and renegotiate the 3rd year? It seems like the increases drop off by then.
Both parties would have to agree to reopen
So
negotiations.
it's not part of their
typical.
current, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Article 5 will, Article 6 will appear on the ballot as written. Mary?
Oh,
You're right.
I make a motion to restrict Article 6 from further consideration.
I'm going to second that.
Okay, we have a vote on reconsideration. All those in favor of restricting, raise your cards. All those opposed, raise your cards. Okay, Article 6 is restricted. Article 7, shall the Barrington School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 to be added to the School Facilities Capital Reserve Fund previously established on March 13, 2012. This sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available to transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from additional taxation. Recommended by the school board 5-0 and the ABC 4-1. Any comments from the school board? Any comments from the ABC? Comments from the floor? Yep.
Diane St. Jean, Small Road. I noticed in the presentation that there was an item for roof silicone in the next 6 years or so. And I would just like to suggest to the board that it would be really important, I think, to consider rooftop solar within the next 6 years. I think it would be a big help in offsetting the rising energy costs, and I can't really understand why it hasn't been done sooner. Thank you.
Any comments from the school board? No. Okay, any more comments from the floor? Yes, Joyce.
Joyce Capiello, 23 Lois Lane. Has the Energy Committee done a energy audit of school buildings yet? Because they have done a number of buildings in town, so if they haven't, I might suggest that if you're thinking.
We had one done, it's been a bit now, close to 10 years at this point. But that was when we switched our light bulbs and went to, got away from using oil and a number of other cost-saving measures, the window screening for safety as well as sun glare. But we may be due for another one.
And if memory serves from the committee, we did look at solar for at least the elementary school and what the conclusion was.
I can't hear you. Please speak into the mic a little.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ron. What I think the conclusion was that we'd have to put a whole new roof on the elementary school in order for it to support the solar panels. And so, unfortunately, it was cost prohibitive at the time. So this building might be a different manner, but.
Any other comments on Article 7? Seeing none, Article 7 will appear on the ballot as written.
Unsurprisingly, I make a motion to restrict Article 7 from further consideration.
Yeah, and I'm going to second that.
Oh, what a switch.
Shocker.
All right. All right, all those in favor of restricting reconsideration, raise your cards. All those opposed? Okay, Article 7 is restricted. Article 8, shall the Barrington School District, if Article 6 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 6 cost items only? Recommended by the school board, 5-0, and the ABC, 5-0. Any comments from the board?
Just want to clarify, the slide says Article 5. It is actually Article 6 in the handout. Anyone looking at the display, it's Article 6.
When you're looking at,
It's
says
Article
five.
6 as written, however, on the presentation, it says Article 5.
First one says Article
Okay, yes, all right, so that slide is incorrect, it's Article 6.
The slide's incorrect, but the warrant is written correctly, yes. Good catch, thank you.
Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening.
All right, any comments from anybody? If not, okay, Article 8, I'm sorry, will appear on the ballot as written. Any other-
I make a motion to restrict Article 8 from further consideration.
You want to do that too?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor of restricting Article 8? Article 8 is restricted. All right. Not very controversial. Okay, that's all the articles. We'll accept a motion to end the deliberative session, if anybody would so move. What's your name? Bud Titus moved to end the deliberative session. Would anybody second that?
Tracy over there.
Tracy Hardikoff seconds. All those in favor of ending the session, raise your cards. All those strongly opposed to ending the session, raise your cards. Okay, thank you. The deliberative session is ended.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.